technology that's coming is going to be broadcasting at 60 gigahertz. That is the absorption spectrum of oxygen molecules. There are instances where 60 gigahertz systems have been deployed in the United States, and it is a weaponized system. You don't mess with oxygen molecules. 30 days without food, you're going to be really skinny and probably dead. 3 days without water, you know what happens. A very short amount of time without air, and it's lights out meatball for all metabolic processes in a human body and all other life forms as we know them. What happens at the molecular level when you have oxygen molecules being hit with radio frequency emissions at 60 gigahertz, which you think is fine, is it affects the orbital properties of the electrons and the hemoglobin's ability to bind the oxygen molecules. This is horrific and frightening, and health decisions are being made for masses of people.
What would 5G infrastructure look like? Small cell antennas could be placed as close as every third hydro pole. Scientists from 42 countries are now warning their governments about the emerging health problems associated with wireless radiation, and Canadian doctors and scientists have added their voices.
The most prevalent symptoms include headache, fatigue, decreased ability to concentrate, tinnitus, irritability, and insomnia. Impacts on the heart and the nervous system are also of great concern.
Dr. Rena Bray has been working at the Provincial Environmental Health Clinic for 15 years and seen the number of people suffering adverse effects from electromagnetic exposure rising.
We are concerned that the upcoming introduction of 5G will significantly increase the proximity and extent of exposure to microwave radiation in Ontarians. We predict that the number of people who develop the symptoms I just mentioned will rise in the places where 5G is first installed.
Dr. Magda Havas is internationally recognized for her research on the biological effects of electromagnetic pollution. She said that at high intensities, these waves cause intense heat and pain because sweat glands on the surface of our skin act like mini antennas.
At lower frequencies, scientists are predicting damage to eyes, loss of insect populations which are already declining, antibiotic resistance in bacteria, and physiological effects on the nervous system and on the immune system.
Radiation from radio frequencies is classed in the same category of carcinogens as lead. One advisor to the World Health Organization said there's enough evidence that if they were to re-evaluate radio frequency radiation,
it would be placed in class 1, i.e. a human carcinogen, and governments could not possibly ignore that.
Some say the scientific debate about the health effects of microwave radiation is over, but the question remains, can we afford to take this risk? Medical doctors are requesting delayed deployment until testing can be conducted on the long-term biological effects of 5G technology.
And you can see here another link I have to an article in RF Safe talking about millimeter wave systems. And millimeter waves are utilized by the U.S. Army in crowd dispersal guns called active denial systems. You should look at the videos on active denial systems. They beam the millimeter wave into test subjects, people, and their skin feels like it's burning, and they run for cover. So this article goes into that. And this is an excerpt from an activist.
I'm Dr. Deborah Davis, and I'm here to talk with you today about the 5G that Environmental Health Trust is quite concerned about. This is a network that's being rolled out all over the country that will involve thousands of antennas. I love my devices as much as anyone else, but I don't want to put the health of my grandchildren at risk. I don't want to put them in harm's way. And we now know that the skin, our largest organ, does respond to 5G. And in fact, we have in our sweat ducts, they can act as antennas that can receive signals. Now, this has not been tested for safety. The fact that it can interact with our sweat ducts may have much more profound meanings for our overall health and well-being. The idea that we're going to saturate this country with a network that has never been tested is appalling, and I am joining with many other scientists from around the world now to express concerns and to say we must evaluate these things before we roll out the technology. No matter
All right, so you get the idea. There's a lot going on with this, and you do not hear about it. You do not get feeds of this on your phone. Now, you could research last year a $1.3 trillion government grant to 5G companies signed by Trump.
California Governor Gavin Newsom's order to do exactly what I posed we need to keep an eye out for in the last video, installation of new wireless equipment during the quarantine. But the most eye-opening event of all that all of you need to understand is that during the near-peak moment of hysteria regarding this whole pandemic with looming shutdowns on the news, everyone's running around buying up all the toilet paper. An act was passed into law titled, quote, Secure 5G and Beyond Act of 2020. Yep, this act calls for a comprehensive plan to secure a national 5G grid in no later than 180 days. Yeah, they did it. This bill that was made into a law on March 23rd, link in description, it demands quick deadlines to ramp up this agenda into high gear. Why on earth would they be doing this now? I ask. And isn't it interesting that the bill admits that the period for public comment about this law must happen within 60 days? There are only like 53 some days left. So they pass this law when we won't be able to get out and protest? When we're going to be forced to be locked up during this quarantine? Just a coincidence, right? Is it also a coincidence that the bill names representatives of Homeland Security, National Intelligence, the Department of Energy and Defense as consultants for its strategic implementation? Do we really need that just to get faster speeds? I don't think so. This bill gives much language in the way of protecting the companies involved from the benefit of the installation of this weapon, much language to protect America's economic interest, as well as protecting the infrastructure rollout itself, with not a word about protection for the people against potential hazards of this admittedly untested technology. Guys, you can be sure it has been tested by the military decades ago. But not one study has been done by telecom to prove its safety against us. They admitted it to you. I stated and showed specifically that 60 gigahertz has distinct oxygen absorption properties, and it does. And any of you right now at this moment can even Google this and see that oxygen has a very unique relationship with 60 gigahertz. It's all over. It's not even hidden yet. I also pointed out and showed a video of the biggest heads of telecom wringing their hands and squirming in their seats as Senator Blumenthal boldly asked them, "How much money have you spent researching the safety of FIVEG?" To which they answered, "None."
So essentially, the answer to my question, how much money? Zero.
I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today.
And in the call to action of my video, I openly admitted I'm not even qualified to talk about this, but I called for truly independent science to step up and test, please test, for the safety of 60 gigahertz and all the other frequencies for that matter. Test these potential impacts before we take this thing that has the ability to interact with oxygen and put it on every third light post in all your neighborhoods any further. I called for discernment and reasons to question their proposed solution to this thing. to what this whole viral debacle will actually be. And it seems to be very little resistance amongst the masses to the idea of an eventual mandated SHOT against, they say, a very dangerous virus. Finally, I showed you how Section 13 of most of those shots also admits that no, they haven't been tested for mutagenic properties, and no, they haven't been tested for the ability to impair fertility, and no, they haven't been tested for potential carcinogenic propensity. That's cancer. Many of you out there right now, a large portion of you are already suffering with symptoms from wireless and you don't even know it. The inability to sleep or feel rested when you do sleep, impaired memory, or the inability to concentrate the way you used to. Some of you have ringing in your ears or headaches, even migraines. Some of you cannot reproduce. Try it as hard as you can and pay it as much as you want. It's just not happening. Many school nurses I've talked to have seen huge increases in the number of headaches and nosebleeds in children at school over the last few years since 2.4 gigahertz and multiple transmitters, sometimes over 30 in a room, have been generously provided for them. Even anxiety, irritability, or bouts of depression are all linked already to the exposure of normal wireless radiation fields we already have, because this is a whole new level and Trump is all for it. And finally, trusting the plan of those currently pretending to run the White House, I would like to emphatically and politely ask that you wake up. 5G and forced shots are the plan. You want to say Trump is fighting this from within? Wake up. He's made it abundantly clear. He's paving the way for this stuff, not only to be in the cities, but he spent billions upon billions to ensure you can't even go into the country to get away from it. Trusting the plan, DNA-altering shots to help you never get the coronavirus, and 5G will work together. The many studies about the impacts of 2.4 gigahertz breaking mitochondrial DNA, for example, inside the eggs of females didn't seem to stop the rollout of 2.4 and Wi-Fi. In my lame brain, guys, this information should be enough to immediately halt the untested unleashing of 60 gigahertz frequency.
My question for you, particularly Mr. Gillen and Mr. Perry, how much money has the industry committed to supporting additional independent research? I stress independent research. Is that independent research ongoing? Has any been completed? Where can consumers look for it? And we're talking about research on the biological effects of this new technology.
Thank you, Senator. I think, thank you for your focus on the issue. Safety is paramount, and as you alluded to, we rely on the expert agencies, we rely on the findings of the FDA and others as to the requirements to keep all of us safe. There are no industry-backed studies, to my knowledge right now. Happy to visit with you as to what opportunities you think there needs to be more studies, and we're always for more science. We also rely on what the scientists tell us.
So essentially, the answer to my question, how much money? Zero.
I can certainly follow up with you, Senator. To my knowledge, there's no active studies being backed by industry today.
Anybody else know of industry commitments to back research, fund it, support it, to ascertain scientifically the health effect?
Senator, I'm not aware either, but I do know that with small cells especially, you're going to have lower power levels. And of course, as from a carrier perspective, you want to be able to manage interference so that that interference is the lowest interference possible. So I would think that some of those studies or some of that information could be utilized in looking at the health consequences. But no, I'm not aware of any.
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of flying blind here, so far as health and safety is concerned. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.